Lions of the Southland 249. Today is a this is gonna be quite an episode. I don't really other way to put that. Lots has gone on since we last talked with Joey Weaver, so we'll cover clean old fashioned hate. We're gonna cover volleyball, and there are four crazy matches. We're gonna cover the basketballs. There was some good swimming stuff. So all the last 2 weeks in tech sports is happening here. Today we have a new guest to the show, a long time. I think we've been a fan of this guy for since he got on campus. He's actually no, sorry, you've been on the show. I interviewed you last year. I forgot. Ben King, formerly of Georgia Tech baseball, now of Atlanta Med School, being smart, doing surgery. I imagine you're just all in the in the weeds of that. Ben King, thanks for showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. Can't wait to get into the nitty-gritty of what's been going on with GT Athletics with you guys.
Jake, before I get into the football game, where did you watch the football games? Me and Ben were both in Sanford Stadium, but what position us for where you were watching at a TV, which most of our listeners will have been.
So not to dox my aunt and uncle's house, but I have doxed myself here before. I was watching from my childhood hometown, at my aunt and uncle's. There is a bar at the end of the street, but it got timed up in such a way that I was like, I'm not feeling that I can watch this game in public,
Oh
which
no,
only served to be much better as the night went on.
fair, fair.
It's kind of like their cheers. My parents and my aunt and uncle live on the same street. So if I would have gone in there and been a mess, then everyone in town would have been talking about it because I'm from the biggest small town in the world. I talk about it like there's 400 people. No, there's 12,000 people that live there. But like I got a text from my mom like an hour ago as we were trying to settle back in from being out and about. And she's like, I heard you ran into so and so at the airport. And I was like, how? How did you find that out? So yeah, I was I was with the family for that one, which has its pluses and minuses. You get a lot of questions of like, oh, why does Georgia Tech do blank? And it's like, oh my gosh, like if I could only tell you. But I'm sure we're gonna get into all of that as we get on the show. So
Yeah,
certainly not the first sporting event I've watched from that couch, nor will it be the last.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I'll run through what happened in the game here, and then we will just yapper on about how we feel about this game. The game itself, it was a 44-42 loss in 8 overtimes against the school out east. We scored a field goal on our first drive, had a couple great chances to get more points, but could not convert on a fourth and inches. And then Aiden Burr also missed a field goal to what could have put us up 3 scores within a quarter and a half. But we did end up getting to another touchdown. Haynes King somehow got a bobbled snap, took it for a first down. Jackson Halls got us to the 2 yard line. We were up 10-0 in the second quarter. And then Tech forced the fumble, recovered, turned it into a Jamal Haynes leaping touchdown. Did like the Julio Jones leaping over the pylon kind of thing, which was super cool. 17-0 Georgia Tech late in the second quarter. All of us had no idea what the hell was going on at this point. Uh, Later in the third, there was Georgia got down to the 1 yard line. Really sure we had forced a fumble. Don't know how y'all feel about that, but Georgia scores. They go for two, don't get it. So we're up 11, 17-6 mid third quarter. We have one of our customary Paul Johnson esque 10-minute drives, which we only get a field goal out of it, but that's big because it turned into a 14-point game at 20-6 in the fourth quarter. Georgia's offense start to figure out some things here because we had some secondary injuries, which wasn't helping. Warren Burrell did not play in this game. Georgia scored in the next drive to make it 20-13. Tech had what I thought was about to be the most iconic drive of this entire new era of Tech football. It was just Haynes King just took over. Singleton had a massive 33-yard catch. King scored with 5.5 minutes left to make it 27-13. Georgia scores quite easily after that. We just kind of don't play press. We just play prevent coverage basically. They make it 27-20, and then Haynes King on a what should have been a targeting call fumbles the ball. Georgia picks it up. They have a short field. They score, make it 27-27. Then we go to overtime. First overtime, both teams score, kick their PATs. Double overtime, both teams score and miss their required 2 point conversions. Now we're into 2 point conversions only. No one scores until the fifth overtime, where both teams scored. UJ went first, so we had to tie it. We had a chance, multiple chances to win in earlier overtimes, but in the eighth, we failed to score. And Georgia scores, and we were all exhausted after Mr. Kirby Smart called about 18,000 timeouts throughout the game as well. Uh, which I could feel that in the press box too, of how long that was taking. Ben, I'll go to you first. Just at that point, at whatever 11:45 midnight it was in Sanford Stadium. Just where were you? Like, did this turn into just like a fever dream of a game for you? Like I'm sure it did for a lot of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was the whole thing was just kind of unbelievable. I mean, I feel like it was kind of a fever dream from the start. You come out
Yeah.
and get up 17-0 in the first half. I was texting with Wiley Ballard at halftime, and he's like freaking out. Like Wiley was already freaking out at halftime. He's like,
Yep.
"This is 2013 all over again." I was like, "Wiley, like calm down. Like it's gonna like just watch the second half, let it happen." And so then I sat and I was sitting with my parents and looked over at my dad and I said, "We've got to come out in the second half, play to win the game. Don't play not to lose." So if we come out and we're playing not to lose, we're gonna lose. It's gonna happen.
Yep.
And I really didn't feel like that they did that in the second half. I felt like we kept our foot on the gas
Yeah.
pedal, came out. We're trying to win the game. And then we go up, that drive that you talk about that could have been kind of the most iconic drive in the modern era of Georgia Tech football. You go up by 14 points with 5 minutes and 37 seconds left in the game, I think. And like our row started to clear out. The Georgia
Yeah.
fans were leaving the game. Like people were like shaking our hand, telling us like good win, good job. And even then I was like, oh my gosh, like this game is not
We
over.
all knew. Yeah.
Right.
Tech
Like
people all knew. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like we needed one more stop, one more drive, one more first down when we were on offense, and just the breaks just didn't go our way. I think there were so many different times throughout that game, especially in the second half, where it's like if you told me before the game that we would have this opportunity, I would have taken it in a heartbeat, even
Right.
after how things had
Right.
gone. Like if you tell
Mhm.
me we're up by a touchdown and we've got the ball 3rd and 1, and Haynes King is healthy and we need 1 yard to get a first down and ice the game, I would have taken that absolutely. If you tell me even when Georgia tied the game, like and there's a minute left in the game and we get the ball back with a minute left in the game, if you'd have told me driving over to Athens that it would be a tied game with 1 minute left and we would have healthy Haynes King and the ball, I would have taken that every day in the week and twice on Sunday, and
Yep.
Yep.
it just didn't happen. And so it was a long night, exhausting night, really feel for the guys on the team. That was one of the more unbelievable team efforts that I've ever seen. And just walked
Yeah.
out of the stadium, obviously very frustrated with the result, but couldn't be prouder of how the guys played and fought the whole game.
Yeah. And I think the highs were high, but in terms of how the game kind of played out, I mentioned, it's kind of comfy to watch on a couch for a change and things like that. I'm usually in the stadium as listeners know, and you can sing the fight song even though you're in, town redacted far away and feel the highs, but like those lows were low too, but you put it better than I ever could have, and I want to tie it back to at least a little bit the kind of the way the whole season has gone is if you'd have told me blank, I would have taken it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like that's something that's gonna get lost and I didn't end this game mad. Not I don't want to say I never like believed they would win, but you don't count the chickens until the clock hits double zeros. You don't like
Yep.
you're playing a good team in their building, something's gonna happen. Like it's Murphy's Law. Anything will happen that can, especially when you're playing against a talent resource, etc. Home field advantage, deficit. Tech has all of that, right? It's not something that I would say I leave mad or angry at the end. It was just it was almost of course, like of course that played out like that did.
Yeah. Yeah.
The highs were high. That double zero, I guess. We weren't losing at double zero. That's
Well,
that's for
that's
sure.
great.
But
I mean, you tell
triple zero.
I mean, multiple those overtimes you would take that situation too, even
Yeah.
as deep as it was. Um, to the point in like what the seventh overtime when we had a chance to win it, and at that point both teams had fully run out of overtime plays. Like
Hmm.
they were just calling stuff at that point. Like no one has 10 2-point conversion plays just ready. You don't need to practice 10 of those. You only need like 3 of those in a season at best. That aren't just run the guy up the middle behind your lineman kind of situation. Which, in hindsight, I mean, they tried that the play I was telling Kelly Quinley in the press box. It just felt like if they needed 4 yards, they would just do the Haynes King fake toss to the right, run up the gut play, And eventually they finally caught on to that. That play had worked all season, had been the touchdown play multiple times this season for us as well. And they just couldn't get out there. I agree on feeling. I definitely was not mad. It was just kind of that numb rawness after you just go through something that just takes you completely out of your senses. Like you just are so frazzled. All the adrenaline's still pumping. I didn't go to bed until 4 a.m. because I wasn't back until 3:15 in Atlanta. Um, like it's just like I'm
Oh,
surprised I slept that
I
night at
slept
all.
poorly. Like I
Yeah,
don't know
no,
about you guys, but
Mhm.
I mean, somehow I slept. I'm not sure how, but I did. Didn't wake up until like noon at that point. I felt for Ben. This is partly why I was hoping. I'm glad you're here because afterwards, I mean, Haynes and Brent shared a very long embrace in the press conference. President Cabrera went up to them as well. It was very clear of like how proud he was of them, which I think was a really critical thing for them to see and whatnot here. But I mean, I know you played in some quite similar-ish baseball games for Tech at this point, just from the athlete's perspective. Like when you're in this moment after a game, like what does that feel like? Because I know we've all had losses in some sort, but this is NCAA. You played against our rivals a bunch of times. Just where do you go in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think the closest parallel I can draw is actually like this past spring, the regional in
Mm,
Athens. And obviously that's a much smaller scale, like college baseball, not the same type of national TV audience, not and and especially, it's a standalone game last Friday.
right.
There's maybe 5,000 people at Foley Field for that game in the spring, 95,000 people in Sanford Stadium on Friday for the football game. And so I'll just say like, when we lost in the regional, when we lost in that game, and it was kind of so not quite as dramatic as 8 overtimes, but it was pretty dramatic. I mean, we had the lead up 5-3 in the eighth inning, and then give up solo home runs in the eighth and ninth to tie it, and then end up losing the game in extra innings. And that's at the end of a regional. You've played 3 games already, 1 game earlier in the day to call your way back through the losers bracket, and you're just exhausted, and I think it was Haynes's quote after the game. He was like, "I'm just so tired of feeling like this, of feeling
Yeah.
like it doesn't go like you give everything you got and it doesn't go your way." And I think that anybody who has ever competed in sports competitively has probably felt that way at one time or another. And obviously when you're on the stage like that game was on Friday night where it's kind of the main attraction nationally, there's no I can't even imagine what everybody on that team, but especially Haynes King.
Yeah.
I mean, just the warrior that he is, and the just what he has meant even to Georgia Tech football. I mean, I would for my money say that Haynes King has got to be, and I don't really know Haynes at all. Like we never really crossed paths at Georgia Tech, but I would say that for my money, he's got to be one of, if not the most impactful athletes in Georgia Tech history. Like
He's
yeah.
building. He's building his
Well,
way there. Yeah.
well,
yeah.
and my wife and I were spitballing on this morning. It's one of those things where like they went 7-6 and won a Gasparilla Bowl last year, and had a fine year, beat Miami, probably getting to at least a decent bowl opportunity to get an eighth win. Like he's not hanging a banner, at least not yet. Might stick around another year, can
Mhm.
get an ACC or an NCAA title. He's a guy, but the embodiment, and Brett said it in his presser. I listened to that, and all that in the hindsight, like that. Those are the kind of seniors or leaders and that kind of talent that you build a team culture around. Honestly, the only
Yeah.
kind of players that came to mind, at least in obviously recency bias, because that's when we've been hooked into this. But like it's like Jose Alvarado, Ian, almost. But I mean, he had an ACC title to go with too. But it's like the guys that would like lead you into battle. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
I'm not a football player. I'm a swimmer. It doesn't hit the same way, but
No, I think you're right. Like that's, I mean, Brent's described. I remember, forget what game it was. That was the Miami game when we had the two quarterback games, and it was just like, and we asked Brent in the presser about Haynes, and dude, he started crying at the podium with just how hurt he was in that game and what he gutted through to make it happen. This game, obviously, his arm must have been much healthier because he was slinging the ball for 300 plus yards to the point where Kirby Smart was like completely thrown off by what happened in the game. Um, but yeah, no, it's a guy. He personifies leading this team. so well for this particular moment that Tech is in
Hmm.
as well. Like knowing we are coming from from the worst, I mean, basically the worst stretch ever in program history in the 100+ years of the team, and got us to back to relevancy last year. Showed like, okay, there's something here. And then against, I remember we said this, Jake, early this year. We were like 6-6 with this schedule would be awesome. We know what we have to play against, and then we beat that with games to spare, and nearly got to 8 uh, through. I mean, as good of a game as we'll ever see. I mean, at this point, here in my head, I'm kind of wondering this too. Is this the wildest game, number 2 behind Cumberland at this point?
Yep, no,
No. Okay.
no. And I've done this podcasting thing, and it's a visual medium. I know everyone's listening enough to know that Ben, I've seen like thoughts cross your mind like 4 times in what Jack and I was saying. So like, I don't want to let this get too far down the road because I mean, I know I'm sure we could all talk about Haynes King and monologue for an hour, but you got anything else before we kind of steer into that bigger arc?
Yeah, no, I just would just kind of to echo, I mean, about Haynes and the trajectory of the football program is I think it's just such a contextual thing when you look at where the program was at and what just the culture was of that first year that Key took over. Um, don't want to bash a guy that I didn't know, but you had the quarterback of that team when Collins get fired, who basically just quits on the team in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's, for whatever reason that was that happened, like that was not good, not a good sign of the culture, of the trajectory of the program.
Right.
And
Yep.
and as a somebody who played a sport everybody else in the athletic department relies on football for the revenue. They rely on football for like
Mm-hmm.
the brand recognition. And so if the football program had just totally collapsed into a dumpster fire, like it was looking like it was headed in that direction, then that trickles down to every other program in the athletic department. And so to have a guy like Haynes King who's come in and is just an absolute warrior, that every time he goes out there, he's going to give you absolutely everything he's got. And, for better or for worse, like the team is pretty good. Like I would
Yeah.
take us
Yeah. Yeah.
when he's healthy, like I would take us against just about anybody. You know what I mean? Like Georgia's
I
one of
agree.
the best
Hmm.
teams
I
in the
agree.
country and you took them to 8 overtime. So just don't think you can say enough about, in my opinion at least, about the job that Brent Key and Haynes
Yeah.
really together. I feel like they're so closely linked together. The job that they've done in these first 2 years here, and I just hope that we get to see Haynes another year.
Yeah.
I really, really, really admire watching him play quarterback and think he's just a great leader from what you can see from the outside.
And I can't even that's the thing that I think breaks me up the most. I can't even imagine how he or Brent or just other guys on the team feel. I had random people that I don't even keep that close with texting me about it, and I'm some guy. Like I, I'm
Yeah.
just Jake. Like I can't imagine how that compares to put in the work and put in all the effort and get to that spot. Jack, I could feel you starting to go towards the we would have been happy with 6-6 route. And I think that's something that we need to dwell on in this podcast. Obviously, the season's
It's not over yet.
not
We can get
over
to 8 still.
yet.
We can get to 8 still. Yeah, we can totally get to 8. Yeah. I
But
think we
and
should get to 8.
the reason this has been fresh on my mind is because the last time we had a conversation like this was after the Louisville game. Me going up there and
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and that whole experience. And Ben, for context, my sister plays softball for Louisville, so family affair type thing. And when when you experience these things with different people, it's almost like that's I watched it with that same set of people that I saw that previous game with. Okay, a lot of these same thoughts are going through my head. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
if you would have told me you're going to be in this game late, to your point, Ben,
Yeah.
to be tied, to have the ball back with a minute to go and the opportunity to win the game, absolutely we take this. If
In that final minute, I had
yeah,
belief we actually were going to win that game because with how good, I mean,
yeah,
our offense didn't exactly, they never stalled really throughout that entire game. And I know Burr can kick a ball from 60 yards out. Like he kicked it from
yeah.
58 in the spring game. Granted, better weather for kicking back then and whatnot. But I'm like, I think that dude can kick it from far enough if it comes to it. We just got to get there. And we damn nearly did.
Like there's a piece to it. I think at least that's what I try and tell
Yeah. Yeah.
myself a little bit, and granted I kept having that premonition of the right before that block kick that Louisville ran back. I had the same thought of like something's happening. Like the game had so many of those something's happening moment, and sometimes it's NC State pop pass goes wrong and it's a good something's happening. But it's been a full
Hmm.
season of it, kind of like men's basketball this year, but on men's basketball last year, but on mega steroids of just such high spikes of emotion, of energy, of attention. Shoot, Ben, to your point on football kind of driving the bus, but like I'm a season ticket holder in what, 4 or 5 sports, but I'm still more likely to go to a very successful women's game when I'm feeling good vibes from football or hoops
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
volleyball or something like that. It's all so closely linked, and I think that's what's like you hear the phrase "in the walls," and it usually is something like bad that you need to get out, but like it's almost like it's like an infectious need to like I saw that football game. Yeah, they lost, but like, what's women's hoops going to do next? Like, I need something next, and it's good to have that like feeling of where are we going to a bowl? What's going to happen? What's going on with it? Like, I
Hmm.
I feel more locked in now than I have in what, 2, 3 years, 4 years of the program. Like that.
Sure. That checks out. I mean, I'm sure, I mean, Ben, you're probably feeling the same. It's like, all right, what plans do we got to make next month for where we got to go for this bowl game? Because it's like you can't miss this now at this point. Like this team is much. This is the most must-watch football, and Lord knows since before I got to school for sure. So, I think it's like that. Ben, I know you've dealt with bad umpires before, or questionable ball strike calls, maybe a time or two. This certainly was not without its fair share of that. I think this was a game we could have still won, regardless of how that went down. But I have never seen so many people come out of the work like people who on Twitter claim I don't want to bash refs because I know it's a hard job, but that was targeting. Um, and from the state, I had the TV monitor in the press box, so I got a clear view of that. But what were y'all feeling in the stands after that fumble?
I actually like didn't realize that he fumbled initially, to be honest
Same,
with you.
same.
From
Yep,
Yep.
from my vantage point,
Yep.
I kind of just thought he got stopped short, and I was like, okay, it's gonna be 4th and 1, and we're gonna go to the 2-minute warning or 2-minute timeout.
yep.
Hmm.
And we'll punt it away, and then we'll see what the defense can do. I didn't realize that he had I heard the crowd go crazy, and I didn't realize that he had fumbled until 20 seconds later, and I noticed that a Georgia guy had the ball.
Yeah.
Um, couldn't see a great view. They didn't show a great view of it on the jumbotron in Sanford Stadium. I think they kind of knew they didn't show anything forever, and then they went to TV
Yeah.
timeout. The referee didn't say anything in the stadium until they came back from the TV timeout.
Right.
So it was just kind of a weird situation. Then obviously, getting on your phone after the game, and seeing the video of that play of, there was a blatant hold on Romello Height at one point
Mm-hmm.
in the fourth
Hmm.
Yep. Yep.
quarter, that didn't get called, and then obviously the DPI call on one of the touchdowns on the
Mm-hmm.
fourth down play, like. Just they've let them, the referees, it seemed like, let them play the whole game, until the fourth quarter, and then we get to the fourth down touchdown play, and we
Hmm.
decide we're going to throw a flag. Like that's kind of the issue that I had with it, is if you're going to let them play, if you're not going to call the holding flag, if you're not going to call the targeting, then let them play. Don't decide right
Yeah.
then on fourth down in the end zone that you're going to, alter the outcome of the game. That was really the biggest issue that I took with the officiating.
Yeah. I think the Phantom DPI was world's worst, at least watching on TV. It would have ended the drive right there. Tech gets the ball back, and instead it turns into a 7 point swing for them. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. That's the
I
something
mean,
I
the DPI,
appreciate
like the
about.
game is over. If they
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
call the
Yeah.
DPI, like it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
14 point game, because I'm pretty sure that was I think on that drive that they scored, after we went up by 14 points, when it was,
Yep.
Yeah. It was.
5 minutes 37 seconds, and they drive right down the field, and then we kind of stonewall them at the goal line, get the fourth down. Like if they don't convert there, we get the ball back. Like they're not going to score again twice in 3 minutes or whatever was left on the game.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
And you've played the whole game with the referee. Like it's one thing to not call something. If you don't see it and you don't call it, whatever. It's a whole nother thing to
Yep.
act like you saw something or see something that didn't really happen and decide, okay, I want to get in there and make this about me, and I'm gonna alter the outcome of this game.
Yeah. And I think grand scheme, there's 10, 11, 12, however many you want to say plays, that if one single one goes differently,
Hmm.
Tech wins that game.
Yep.
There's a handful in overtimes, and like the Haynes fumble, the missed fumble that should have been called, the two DPIs. Like it's so hard to overcome a dozen of those. Like
Yep.
it's
Yep.
almost like, and again, that's not something where you walk away being mad at Tech. Like that's not something Brent can coach him up to do differently or whatever.
No,
There's
I
a
mean,
fumble on Saturday night where I was watching Texas A&M, where I think it was Ewers just had the ball like flying around. Like that is not what Haynes King's fumble was. That was man got obliterated and then in the scrum of the game like dropped the ball. It's
and on here's why I love Haynes so much is he's still after that he had no reason to take responsibility for that fumble, but he the
nope.
presser who was like I needed 6 points of contact on that football and I didn't get there.
Hmm.
Like he takes we say no moral victories on this podcast. That's what they led with. That's what Brett led with.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that was just like it does not matter. It does not matter how he didn't really talk. He didn't talk about the refereeing or anything like that. They don't. They know he knows he can't without enduring fines. But still, it's like they don't have to in that. But it would be perfectly reasonable to not act like that in this moment because, as he said, he basically admitted it was the most crushing defeat he's ever had. And how is it not? Like it's 8 overtimes, second most overtimes in terms of periods in a football game ever, at least in D1 football. So yeah,
And
that talk about dudes that are so prideful for this team, but also are not gonna just back down at any point. Like
you
these
know who
dudes got
I
the mentality.
you know who I also feel bad about this, and I'm gonna make this the sponsor plug. Stephen would have made a mint selling Section 103 clean old fashioned 8 shirts.
I know.
He makes great stuff otherwise, but consider this one sliding doors
That would have
in
been
that
something.
regard. But
Let me mention a couple other things before we get into maybe some last thoughts here. Aaron Filo did not play in this game, so he has preserved his red shirt. He can still play in the bowl game and not burn it, um, but that we have at least kept that option in the bag, pending how transfers and things happen. We have no idea. I hope everyone stays.
yeah,
This was the second longest overtime game in college football history, save for the 9 overtime game, which was Penn State and somebody else. I'm forgetting who.
Illinois
Illinois,
won
that's
that
right.
game,
Of
and I
course,
watched
Illinois.
that game at the White and Gold World Series 2 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years
Uh,
ago.
How
Yeah,
about that? How about that? This is only the third overtime game in Tech Georgia history. We had 563 yards of offense, which was our season high. King had 413 yards of offense by himself, which was his career high, of course. And then 7-5 record to finish the regular season, which is one game better than 2023. Which I guess back to that, we're not six. We thought this was going to be a 6-6 year. Of course, we get the 7-5 in a way we did not predict in any way, shape, or form.
yeah.
Between Florida State and Miami and Virginia Tech, with having the team basically sick the whole game and barely not losing that. We've all talked about it. It was a wild way to get there, but I guess right now, Ben, I'll start with you. Just how we talked about trajectory of the program. Just how great does it feel to be in this spot right now, knowing where this could have been at the beginning of the year?
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know that there was a time where I never really thought that we would get back to this, to be honest with you. I mean, and I know that
Yep.
we're still that it's 7-5 or whatever. Like Georgia Tech with Haynes King is healthy is the best 7-5 team in the country.
Oh
Actually,
yeah.
absolutely,
Like,
absolutely, yeah.
there were a couple years ago, that last full year of Collins' tenure, I think that was that 21?
That was
Yeah.
20. That was 21. We lost 100-0 in the last 2 games.
Yes. I was at both of those games. I was
Same,
at the Notre
same.
All
Dame
of us.
game.
All of us
Yeah.
were there.
Yeah.
All 8 quarters.
And like it could not get any lower than that. Like
Mhm.
I didn't know that I didn't think we would ever compete with Georgia in football again at that
Yep.
point. Like it felt like that Georgia that day just kind of showed up and were phoning it in, and they still beat us
Boom.
45-0. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And
Yeah,
like it
yeah.
was just a miserable experience to be a Georgia Tech football fan. And
Hmm.
now we're to the point where where it's really a team that you can take pride in, and not just in the way like obviously when you beat Miami, that's fine. When they won the game in Ireland before we knew that, I mean, it still was a big win. We didn't know that Florida State was
Yeah.
going to be a dumpster fire this year when they won that game, but the game on Friday night, like the way that they do things, the way that, and I had a tweet on Friday night after the game that has now kind of gone off the rails a little bit with it's gotten taken over. Some people have taken it the wrong way, I guess, somehow. But
I'm
just
off Twitter. What'd you say, Ben?
I just it basically the gist of it was how proud I am to be a Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket, proud of the football team, proud of the
Hmm.
degree from Georgia Tech, proud of the alumni base. That there's some stuff, some thoughts that I have about how they do things in Athens. Not all of them are positive, but I'll save those for now. And really my gist of what I meant from and then now it's like 81,000 views later, 50 replies from
Yeah.
Yep. I'm looking at it. Yep, you're
all
about
sorts of
there.
far reaches of the internet. And really just what I meant by that is it's just it's a football team that you can be proud to watch and root for, even when they lose. You know they're doing things the right way.
Yep.
They're playing hard. The coaches, I feel like Coach Key is emphasizing the right things to the players. I feel like that the players play hard for him, they play hard for each other. And that really, to me, at the end of the day, is all I can ask for out of Georgia Tech football. I'm not thinking I don't go to games as a Georgia Tech fan thinking that we're gonna win the national championship. Just being
Yep.
honest. Like
Yeah.
you talk about the resource discrepancies, whatever, fan base discrepancies, like that's real. Those exist.
Yeah.
So if you've got a
Hmm.
team that's gonna go out there and fight and represent your school the way that this team has this year, and then I felt like that the team last year did towards the back half of the year. That's really all I can ask for as a Georgia Tech football
Yep.
fan. And so as long as they continue to do that, I'm going to be happy with the program, really regardless of every single on-field result, whether it goes our way or doesn't.
Yeah. I think that's a very fair spot to be in. Jack, I got two loose ends.
I'll note I did get barked at multiple times in Athens and got yelled nerd multiple times, which I appreciate it because that is exactly what I am. So all Georgia grads are welcome to call me nerd as much as you want. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no, part of the reason why I was eager to watch this game on a couch is because you never know when you're gonna run into somebody who may not root the same, and it was
Yeah.
is very peaceful. Would rather answer the dumb questions from my aunt and uncle than to get barked at.
Yeah.
But no, odds and ends. You mentioned craziest game, things like that in tech history. I think I got to put the kick in the pick up there. We note some
Yep. Okay. Yep.
overtime games. The Butker game winner. That is certainly just in terms of UGA and tech games. I'm sure we could. The the UVA number one in Charlottesville upset 1990. I think it definitely goes into the pantheon of games to be talked about, though. I mean, Ben, you noted you and Wiley talking about 2013. I'm sure that's up there in the just games people still talk about. This will certainly be one that we are remembering for a very, very long time. The other thing I kind of wanted to pull out of the back pocket is I don't have a formal trivia odds and ends records type thing today, but I do have something that I've been kind of noodling on. So 1989, and not to imply the 1990 result here, but 1989, Georgia Tech finished 7-4, did not get invited to a bowl game, but what they did do is get off to a slow, kind of inconsistent start and put it all together coming down the stretch. I think saying, hey, therefore, they'll go undefeated next year is very dumb because that team was also extremely lucky, and it takes both luck and skill to win a championship. But in Bobby Ross's third year, he didn't have the partial like Brent Key, but in a third year with that program, you start to see the stars align, and I really think that kind of spiritually aligns with what we saw in the team this year.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
it's one that with some depth, some more continuation of resources, just with consistency in terms of hopefully the staff stays together and things like that. Like that's what you want to see crystallizing in a, I guess, second and a half, but second full season
Yep.
under this leadership. I think that's a sign that hey, they got a good win early against FSU. Hey, Syracuse, Louisville, we've dissected those in the past, but really coming down the stretch, I can't say enough good things about this team. And if I did say bad things, they would be completely unfair because we're feeling about it. The vibes meter is about as high as it's been in quite some time. So
Yeah. This is a very positive podcast for a very heartbreaking game. So
yeah,
far, I think that's a fair representation of
great way to
where
put it.
I think it's a very healthy way to approach this game too. I'm glad we did this now and not the day after the game because I think we would have said different things yesterday or
Yeah.
that night if it was earlier. Um, I feel like the floor is 8 wins next year, but that's a later podcast.
It-
So
We'll talk in March.
we got time for that. Advanced. I just want to do a couple advanced stats notes from the game on paper recap. We outgained Georgia in EPA per play, 0.39 to zero point 0.3, both which are very very high numbers, but ours was higher. So when it comes down to it, on field we played better in terms of pure football than Georgia did, whether the score says it or not, which is really cool. Um, positive EP. We also had positive EPA without explosive plays, which is hard to do, and we did it. Georgia was close, but we were outright positive over the course of the game without our big chunk plays. 51% success rates on run plays. Both Haynes and Haynes were just all great right now, and nearly doubled Georgia on offensive line yards, which I think points to just how well we out physicaled them at the line of scrimmage. Kirby made a note of that as well. Like they got out physicaled, which is I think is when you can do that, you can beat just about anybody, and we were damn close there. And the win probability chart, if you want to have just a wild time looking at colors and lines, look at that because it goes back and forth. And it looks like it's broken, but it's not. That's just what overtimes look like nowadays. With a near perfect at 9.78 game excitement index, a near perfect end, which that checks out. Man, I think close to. I think that's all I have on the actual game itself. Any last bits from you, Ben, before I go into some news here?
I don't have anything else. Just again, just proud of the team's fight. Hate the result, but love the effort from the team.
Absolutely, absolutely. Recruiting had a great day today. That we picked up interior lineman Peyton Joseph earlier this afternoon, 4-star. You flipped to us from Florida State, I want to believe, which is just another guy seeing that this is a good place to come play, and they're starting to come do it. I'm excited to see how we're looking after National Signing Day. We're already 17th in the country right now according to Rivals. So hopefully this keeps going up. Ben, before we let you go, let's do some bowl thoughts, determinations. Right now, there are projections to have us maybe in the Pinstripe Bowl against Minnesota. That's ESPN. In the Sun Bowl, which is really called the Tony the Tiger Bowl, but I'm calling it the Sun Bowl, against USC, which 247 and CBS has it, or the Fenway Bowl against Memphis, which is what Sporting News currently has us. Of course, all this can still change. There's still conference championships to play. There's certain tie-ins that have to happen. Who knows what those even look like after a realignment and who can get what and things like that. I have no idea. I think we're above the Birmingham Bowl slot where we thought we were going to be in last year. So we're going to get in something better in a nicer stadium. Do we have, I guess, not where we think we're going, do we have preferred places we would like to see us play at the end of December?
That's a good question. I would probably prefer, just as a fan, to not get sent to the Pinstripe Bowl or the Fenway Bowl because it's going to be like as cold as it was in Athens on Friday on steroids.
Yeah.
It's going to be freezing, and I feel like it's just weird. Like it is weird. I know I'm a baseball guy, but like the whole college football and baseball stadiums, I don't know that I'm totally out on that, but I also don't know that I'm in on that.
Yeah,
So
I get it. I get it for Wrigley because Wrigley has been a football stadium for a long time for a bunch of teams and whatnot. And Northwestern kind of needs a stadium right now, even though they have the best one already. They should never move out of the Lakefront Stadium.
I got so many thoughts on that, Jack.
I know.
You're going to derail me. The Chicago content, it just drives this podcast straight into the ditch, and I know people don't want to hear it. So.
Ben, I'm with you. I have not been. I've been to Old Yankee. I have not been to Fenway. I don't want my first Fenway Park experience to be in December at a football game and not a proper Red Sox Braves game. But if it happens, it happens. Could be worse. Jake, where would you like to go for a bowl game?
So if they could do the Pinstripe or Fenway thing next year, if we get 7 wins, that'd be great because I cannot be in the Northeast on the 28th of December. It just won't work. But in terms of something nice, I've done the whole I went to Ford Field and it was gross and cold and the day after Christmas and whatever, and it was gross and cold and the day after Christmas. But from everything I hear just from that trip, they were treated pretty well, pretty good giveaways, pretty good things to do. That's kind of my floor. Seems like last year they had a lot of fun in Tampa. Busch Gardens is more fun than I guess going foaling in a warehouse in Detroit kind of thing. But as long as they do something fun, and the players feel rewarded for what was a good season, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, is Charlotte better than going to? I mean, I guess Orlando would probably be better if they're going to Orlando because they're probably going to an amusement park in there. But come what may, like if I can make it, I'll make it. Don't schedule it around me. Just don't put it on a Friday. I think it was a Friday night. Prime time when right before the holidays, that's when families have commitments.
Yeah.
So if it's post Christmas and they have a fun time. Checks my boxes.
Yeah, would be great. I don't think this will happen, but is Music City Bowl against Vanderbilt? Because oh my God, would that be fun? That would just rule. But I feel like that we might be out of reach of that one at this point. But we'll see how ESPN decides to pick their line. I just want to see the cowbell on the field. That's all I want to see. I just want to see the cowbell back.
I
That
would pay money
yeah.
to see Brent Key get mayonnaise dumped all over him, though. I will say that.
Ah, that's a good
my
point.
one.
Good point.
That's my one bold take is that at some point I would like to see Georgia Tech with Brent Key as the head coach in the Duke's Mayo Bowl, and I would like to see him get mayonnaise dumped on.
Oh man.
Can I put this thought out here just as a thought experiment?
All
I
right.
think he's one of college football's most mayo dumpable coaches. And that's a thought that just crystallized in my head. But like he would own it. And it's also like I like if you're like there's a coach that's gonna get mayo dumped on him, I'm like, I bet Brent's up to that, you know.
Jake, I have assigning you an article for this week, which is most Mayo dumpable head coaches in the ACC. Too bad. That's what you got this week. Oh boy,
It's not Mike Norvell. That'll mess up his hair, you know. But
that's true. That's true. Oh boy.
no.
Well, I think we've wrapped a good bow on this. Ben, thank you so much for hanging out with us. It was a joy to talk with you and pick your brain just in all shapes and sizes here. Hopefully we'll have you back soon. 'Cause, I think it'd be cool. So thanks for hanging out. Well, I'm sorry
Yeah,
we had to have this shared experience in Athens, but at least we wrapped it up here nicely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, good
Yeah.
to see you, Ben. All right, men's basketball. Jake, I don't think we need to talk that much about men's basketball right now. They are still in the midst of the directional schools part of the schedule, and they lost 81 to 58 to Cincinnati like a week and a half ago. It feels at this point. It feels like they got a ways to go. It seems.
What's the phrase that we've been trotting out that's kind of wormed its way into our lexicon? We don't need to perceive men's basketball yet.
Yeah,
We'll send up a bat signal when it's time to perceive men's
I think.
which I feel bad saying of as a season ticket holder, somebody who wants to see other people in the building, but like
Yeah,
the note here on our shot sheet says they don't seem to have it all together right now against normal competition. Yeah, they
yeah.
don't. They really, really do not. Like that
Uh,
that is exactly how I would describe how this team is currently playing.
yeah.
It's not pretty.
No.
Not yet at least.
Well,
At least the last two games are comfortable wins, but I need to
yes.
see some defense against a Power Five opponent before we
I
start to perceive them.
I agree. We have I think just in general I think everyone's wanting to see a little bit more out of bye. Nate George has been good on the assist and whatnot, and Onyechekwa has been a cool ad, but yeah, still a ways to go. This week, well, they're facing normal competition this week. Tuesday they go to Oklahoma for the ACC SEC Challenge, and then Saturday we go to North Carolina play the number 12 Tar Heels. So we will.
Do we have to?
I think too. I think. I mean, keep in mind this early ACC slot game last year. We won that game against Duke. Granted, that was at home, but would be cool to win again against North Carolina just in general. So we'll see how that happens. Now, women's basketball, though, Jake. I think we should start perceiving women's basketball.
No, you're late to the party if you haven't started
That's right.
perceiving them yet.
We don't-
Things are good in
we don't
women's
blame you if
basketball town.
We don't blame you if you haven't been perceiving them because two of their last three games were basically not on visible television.
What is baller TV, Jack?
No idea.
Many are saying. Many
don't
are
know.
asking.
No idea. So they were when me and Joey recorded last week. They were in the midst of the Hawaii North Shore Showcase, just one of those cool travel tournament kind of things. They played South Dakota State, who is a very good the team. I don't know what conference they're in. I should know this. The WAC, probably not the WAC. Something. They're good. And the number 21 Oregon Ducks, and we beat them both soundly. I mean,
Yep.
soundly. I listened to the Richard Muster's broadcast of the Oregon game on the radio, and able to ask Nell her thoughts about it after the game, and it was just like they seemed, and basically the vibe was they did what they wanted to do. They
Mhm.
are morphing into the team that they actually want to play like right now. The what was it? 80 something. I forgot what the score was against Oregon, but they were winning that entire game. Oregon clawed back to make it within like a 1-2 possession game, middle of the game, but Tech just stomped their foot and took care of business. Like this was there was no there was no discussing who was the better team that day. It was Georgia Tech over Oregon Ducks.
So, Jack, I have a fun compliment to that. And in all of my I just Googled all the stats pages I usually look at, glory, have decided that this is now consensus a team that would be in the field if tournament play started today. I see them ranging between mid
Wow. All
30s and
right.
low 20s. Georgia Tech women's
Okay.
basketball is a tournament caliber team as of the time of this
I think that's fair.
recording, and they are trending in the right direction.
And then
Um,
yeah, so much so that today they played Florida A&M and they set the program record for 3-pointers.
Hooray!
Would you have to believe it if I said that 4 years ago that they would set the program record for 3-pointers? Probably not.
Uh, I don't
Maybe.
know.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know how I perceive that, but
That's fair. That's fair.
it in terms of like
They won
the
98 to
numbers.
they won 98 to 56 today. They scored 98 points in a single basketball game in regulation. This
Yeah,
was not an overtime game. They put up a legit 98 today.
and I want to give you your flowers here, Jack, because they do need to be acknowledged. You circled this coming game against Mississippi State as the we will find out game, and we talked last time I was on the show about Oregon and South Dakota State being good quality opponents to test oneself against, but like Wednesday, hey, if they're going to keep it rolling, then we're
It's gonna be
feeling
huge.
really good about
It
this
would
team.
yeah,
That this is a big week for them. So.
they're 7-0 right now. For context, but this Mississippi State game. Not only is it our ACC SEC challenge game, but to finish the season last year, we played Mississippi State in the WBIT, which is effectively the reinvented women's NIT tournament kind of thing. We played in their
Yep.
building. It didn't go that well. Let's put it that way. It was the end of the season was kind of rough, anyways. So
Hmm.
whatever. But it was the kind of game where you're like, okay, you could tell that they were just ready to just not to be done with the season. This team, though, with the welcome of Danny Carnegie, Gabby Grooms, Chit Chat, right? They have reinvented themselves in such a great way. Danny Carnegie is up there with second, third most productive player right now behind Tony Morgan and Kara Dunn. Uh, Kayla Blackshear got the start today. She's been coming off the bench some also and has been amazing. We shot 61% today against Florida A&M, which I mean you don't. Again, it was Florida A&M. Obviously, the competition wasn't all the way there,
Yeah.
but still, it's like they were making the shots they were taking. You
Hmm.
can certainly shoot a lot worse this way, and while shooting 28 threes, also like they did the work there. The only person that finished, only people that finished under 50% from three were Ari Termis, who fine, she's a center, and Chit Chat right, freshman, fine, whatever. And Tony Morgan missed her only one she attempted. It was fine. Tony Morgan had 7 assists, 6 points. Tony Morgan didn't need to score today. Didn't need to do it. We were just fine. And she had a plus 28 plus minus ratio, best on the best of the day so far. Um, yeah, this
Free
team
throw
is
rating still a little poor, but I mean they have yet to post a game score under 90, Jack.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, and they're at today was 9 of 12 from the free throw line, which is historically
Well, it's good.
still better
Yeah.
than usual for us. So yeah, we have the Mississippi State on Wednesday. I really hate that I'm not going to be there. But Maggie Doster will be there for us, so we'll have coverage of that game. And then Sunday we play at Mercer, not hosting Mercer. We go to Mercer, which is, I guess, that's fun for basketball. It's much easier to do for basketball than for other sports. So cool to see them doing that.
Also, might as well.
Yeah, sure.
Feels like we owe them a trip, you know?
Not a bad call. It could be fun. Hawkins Arena in Macon, Georgia. If anyone listens down there or wants to cheer on the Lady Jackets, there were Richard did mention there were Jacket fans in Hawaii. I mean, we do live all over the place, so it's not surprising that that was the case. But it was cool that he was like, oh yeah, no, these were not our usual traveling fans that were here at this game. So that was fun to
They
see.
get their money's worth at this point. Men
Oh, they
were
really
out
do.
there last year, and the women are out there this
That's
year.
right.
Like,
That's right.
hey,
Yeah, this team is
send
yeah.
baseball next year or something, you know?
That'd be hilarious. Yeah, may as well.
Yeah.
So there we go. Tony Morgan was the MVP of the showcase. We won it because it was only us, Oregon and South Dakota State, just all played each other, and we won both of our games before Oregon and South Dakota State played each other. So we were the winners by default.
Womp.
So yay!
Yeah.
But yeah, this team's gonna be. We're gonna be keeping close attention here and rooting very hard for them. They got a interesting slate coming up here. They're after the Mercer game. We got Louisiana Monroe, a 1 o'clock Wednesday game, which is interesting. And then
Are they inviting many children again? Like, what's
I
the
don't think so. This isn't even ACC. This is ACCNX. It isn't like a TV thing.
So it's
So
not a TV play? Okay.
I'm not sure
Finals
why.
thing maybe or something? I don't know.
Oh, maybe that's a good point. Maybe I don't know. We'll see. And then we go to North Carolina, and then we finish our home and homes with Rice and Nebraska before Christmas. So there will be some interesting games here. We beat Rice last year on the road. That was Deja Thomas coming out party. Nebraska, I think we just barely lost to Nebraska last year.
Yeah.
And
In terms of programs, teams, things like that, in that upcoming look ahead. North Carolina, top 25 program. Mississippi State, top 30. Rice is a top 100, getting him in our building, and then Nebraska's top 40-ish. So, Mercer and Louisiana Monroe take care of some business, but really should make for an interesting next 3 weeks for this team.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, I'm finally ready for a break here. Jake, take us away with some Section 103 business.
Yes, as ever, Section 103 is the best place to find Georgia Tech apparel. I am wearing my Brent Key coaches hoodie today with the pre-cut short sleeve situation. Section 103, the best place to find that. I really felt like I needed to rep Brent Key today for all those reasons that we just discussed. But there's plenty to buy there. You got just about everything as we angle towards the holiday season tomorrow. December 2nd is the last day to get 20% off. I guess Black Friday, Cyber Monday, post Thanksgiving shopping boom of your choice, however you want to call it, 20% off and free shipping over $80. Tell them we sent you FTRS for another 10%. Note that is actually called Gold Friday, and I did have that in my notes, so shame on me. That is the proper name there. And also, everyone's favorite. Police Bobby Dodd. It's back for another year in gold and heather blue. Definitely go and check that out. And yeah, tell me sent you on the way. One other thing before we go. Coach Hoodie is a 2.0, so check it out in multiple colors there as well. Jack, let's keep it rolling.
Let's do that. We had a very good Georgia Tech invite in swimming and
Yeah.
diving, particularly the women's swim team, which is in a delight. I think both of us as post swimmers slash have been following this team. Very nice to see them keep going in their positive momentum over these last couple of years, and it's turning into team records as we had in this meet. What did we record in?
I actually pulled up the NCAA cuts because this is the
Oh,
first time we can start thinking about this.
you're perceiving them very early,
I
sir.
I am perceiving them very early. My script is still broken, which annoys me. The USA Swimming has changed their little times output, so I need to tinker with that. But in the meantime, I can still print out PDFs and analyze good old fashioned PDF copy. Jack, I want your thoughts. I want you to guess how many B cuts the men and the women each have already. For those who don't know, the B cut is the we'll consider inviting you to NCAA's standard because there are two different standards of you can definitely come or maybe we'll invite you if we have enough room at the party. So Jack, B cuts. How many do you think the men have?
I okay. Berkasaka definitely probably two at this point, something like that in the various backstrokes. Uh, I think we should have a couple of freestyles in there at this point. The distance freeze.
Yep.
Are we counting Max Fowler in this?
No, that's diving.
Okay, not counting Max Fowler. Not sure how we are in the breaststroking this year or in the butterflies for that matter. So I'll say like I'll put five on the guy's side, and then we're doing well on the women's relays. We got some. I'll give me like four on the. Let's say nine total so far.
I know that the number is much higher than that
Oh,
just
okay.
from the men,
Oh, great. Okay.
because I went back and circled around just to recount, but it's over 20.
Oh my
We
God.
we
What is
have
this? What is
we
this?
and that's the thing, not every B cut gets invited. So
Okay,
some of
that's
these
right.
are folks who will never, not get in that same boat. But Jack, in every event, save for the 50 back, which is not contested at NCAA's, and the
Right.
1,000 free, also not contested at NCAA's. The only like NCAA official event in which Georgia Tech does not have at least one provisional cut are the 200 medley and 800 freestyle relays.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's this
The
is
the
wow.
Georgia Tech
All
men
right.
have at least somebody in consideration in every single valid event
That's
come this
fantastic.
spring.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're looking quite good. And the flip side to that coin is not only are the men looking pretty good, but outside of the 100 back, in which Tech does not have a cut yet, they are oh, the second page didn't load for the women. Weird, whatever. But take it my word for it, the women are looking pretty good too. Not quite that same tier, but just about every event has somebody who is at least I guess theoretically in the mix for postseason swimming. I know it's
Mhm.
early, like you said, it is early, but yeah, it's really just one or two events that they don't at least have some positive progress there, which is really really good to see. And now that my page has refreshed, it is just the 200 IM as well for the women. So 200
Okay,
IM and 100
got
back
it.
are the only ones that they don't have the provisional. We'll worry about relays later, but yeah, so a couple relays for each, the men and the women, and then two events without those B cuts. So nothing with an A, no automatic admits, but for mid-season check-in, perceive swimming. It's time to perceive swimming. You sprinkle the success of Max Fowler and the divers on top of that, yeah, they're in a good spot.
I'm liking it a lot. At the tech invite, I believe we got fourth. Both the men and women got fourth when it
Yep,
was all said and done. Which still we face a good team, so that's not really a problem. We go and face Auburn after the new year. In a
again,
dual
who was
in a
at this meet?
Yes, in a dual meet at home. We will also face Duke in January and South Carolina in our duels before, or yeah, okay, just Duke, and then Auburn in our duels before, and South Carolina before we get to the more big groupie meets before we get into the ACCs. So,
Yep.
uh, what was I saying? Oh, the records. Okay, yes. Well, nitty gritties. The women set a couple relay records. I want to say it was a medley and a freestyle. I feel like I'm right in saying that.
Yeah, let me do a quick search. But yeah, I think it's two on the women's side, and oh gosh, I had this written down for the men too. Shame on me. 200 freestyle, and that is the one which the women have the provisional cut. So
Got
Anna
it.
Holaju, Nina Stanislajevic, Kia Smith, Caroline Pape. That is both the provisional cut and the record. So that's on both lists. But yeah, no, the I'd say in general it is pretty strong. I do want to note that basically every other program that was at the meet was ranked. So I know only four teams finishing fourth out of four gets a little bit squirrely. Maybe not what you
Yeah.
want, but I mean in terms of like the quality of opponent and that's why I look at the B standards. Honestly,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can kind of throw out the record books when it comes to Georgia Tech swimming. We've had some great individuals. I don't think it's necessarily a like for like on team performance, but it was a fast meet. I think up and down the list, they again, Auburn, Michigan, those are schools that are good and unfamiliar. If
Yes.
you get my
Yes.
drift, like
Yes.
so far this year, I would say that we're quite familiar with Florida State, having done a dual meet against them already. But yeah, no, the time is coming to perceive these teams.
Amazing, amazing. And yeah, between how and with how great diving's been, we're shaping up to
Yeah,
score more at NCAAs, which was kind of our goal for them was like get some points, y'all. Just get some
get some
points.
points.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you really just got to get one or two athletes into the meet with an A cut, but now's not quite the time for that yet. That's what the ACCs are for, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
just the stack it up against I guess the relative expected. They assign these cuts based on how many people they think will make the cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Being in the mix early is a good thing. It's a judgment against your peers. If they're swimming fast in your meet, you want to be right in that mix as well.
Yep. Yep. Good stuff there. With cross country, we actually did have a runner make the full-fledged NCAA championships. It was Kate Yortberg.
Yep.
She finished 129th, which getting someone there was it just was pretty impressive for us, beyond how she finished when it was all said and done. So that was really cool to see. Um, Volleyball. Oh boy. Oh freaking boy here. So I didn't cover last weekend's game with Zoe because we recorded early in the week, before we faced Florida State, before we faced Miami. Uh, both of those were reverse sweeps. We were up 2 sets to none in both of them. We lost both of those matches. Uh, and then we played Stanford here on Wednesday, the number 6 team in the country. We had 2 match points in the third set. We lost the set, and then proceeded to lose the next 2 sets. Against Pitt, we lost 25-10 in the first set. Thought it was going to be, oh no, here they go again. But then they outright won the second and fourth sets very impressively to force a fifth set. Got to 14-14 in that fifth set, and then lost the next 2 points to lose the fifth set, 16-14, which means Tech finishes 20-9 in the regular season in volleyball, having lost their last 4 games just barely, uh, in the last sets. So, Jake, we knew they probably weren't going to beat Stanford. We knew they probably weren't going to beat Pitt by any stretch of the imagination. We wanted to get one out of Florida, Instead, we get the exact same match 4 times in a row.
Jack, this sports week, if you started with NC State football
Yeah,
and just played like, thank goodness for women's basketball.
I know, I
At
know.
least they were just like, we're just gonna win and put it away. But like the NC State football game, years off my life. The UGA
I know.
football game, years off my life. These
Yep.
volleyball matches, like I was at a museum on Wednesday with one of my best friends from growing up who is not a tech fan by any stretch of the imagination. He didn't go here, and my wife, and I'm walking around this museum like furiously refreshing the live
Yeah.
stats, like
Yeah.
this old 120-year-old building. Why are the walls so thick, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I that match was I was at the Stanford match, and I mean, we felt the Stanford. Once I realized once I got there, was doing some research before the match. Like realized, oh, this was our shot to get them because Stanford
Yep.
had played at Duke and at North Carolina that weekend, and had just this was their third of 3 road games. They just never left the Southeast. And they looked tired in those first couple sets. Like they didn't look sloppy or like a bad team. They just were like, okay, it's clear that they've been gone for a long time and Tech's playing at home. And it's just things were working out. The right combo of factors right there. It was the last home game for Otene and Bertolino and a bunch of
Yep.
other players. So it was like this is an impassioned game for sure. And man, we were at that play. We were up 23-20 in that third set, and that place just was rocking at that moment. And
Yep.
once they started coming back, I was like, I know what this feeling is like. I've been here before. Um, Despite the vibes feeling great, and then Stanford got their window and they turned it on, and we got bashed by them earlier this season at their building. So once Stanford got a hold of the match, it wasn't surprising honestly that they steamrolled us from that point on because they're that good. Like they once they're playing like they should play, this is what's going to happen to Tech. You're not going to beat a team like this. Um, and
Yeah.
that's what happened in that match. I hate it for the girls so badly. Like if they were in it to maybe win a couple of these matches and put them in a spot where they could have gotten out of this probably very likely number 2 seed. The bracket is coming out as I'm talking right now. We have not seen
Yeah. It's on my second screen
we'll
too.
see. We will know what where we're going quite soon. Um, the
Maybe it'll
pit
be while we're still live. Maybe we
hopefully
vamp.
I hope so. I hope so. I want to know. I haven't done the math on this, but I know Michelle Collier's challenge record isn't the greatest of sorts. But this game against Stanford had 10 challenges, and 7 of them were correct between the two teams. A match took forever because the refs were getting correctly challenged so often in this game that they had to keep reviewing and reviewing and
Did,
reviewing every time. It was I'd never seen anything
did
like it.
any Tech fan walk out of the stands and hand the refs a pair of glasses this year, you know?
No, they did
Uh,
not, but that would have been hilarious if they did that. Uh, yeah, the pit game though, weirdly, it felt nothing like the first game when they were in Atlanta, where we looked like not a high school team, but it looked like Pitt was playing like Pitt, and we were playing like anyone normal. Um, the first set certainly looked like that too, losing 10 25 10. Like that was I was like, oh my god, we got to double digits, fantastic,
mhm.
finally. And then they didn't play bad. We just looked like ourselves. Like they turned the switch. We did not look like we were taking advantage of bad Pitt play. We were just playing good Georgia Tech volleyball, which can hold up to very, very good teams. Usually won't win the long run, but it can do enough. And it was doing more than enough in this case, which was shocking to me that we could get
Yeah.
to this point against Pitt this late in the season
Well,
too.
and I ruminate on this quite a bit, and it's obviously going to come up as we think tournament selection and things like that. But like the life of a number, say, 10 through 30 ranked or roughly thereabouts volleyball team feels to me to be it's like uniquely frustrating. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like there are cases where we see any given day and in baseball, any given day in football, I guess to an extent. Maybe it's a little more clear cut of a line just because of the top 12-ishness, but like,
Mm-hmm.
man, you can have a great season. You can have a great season that ends in what? The Sweet 16 or maybe Elite Eight if it breaks your way. And now it's like, I mean, my expectation in my head is like, oh man, that Elite Eight year, all that run we hosted. But like 16
Mm-hmm.
teams get to do that. To sustain that is so hard. Tech
Yeah.
probably won't be hosting this year. I mean,
Oh
you
no.
flip two of those games down the stretch and maybe you're talking about it, but like that,
If you
this is
flip
the
Pitt,
life of
you had to
what?
flip Pitt and Stanford, I think, by that point in the
Yeah.
season. Like
Yep.
after losing to Florida State and Miami, which
Yeah.
Florida State was ranked. Florida State was ranked at that game. Like a ranked on ranked game usually doesn't hurt you all that much, especially in the eyes of the very slow moving coaches poll. If you go to 5 sets,
Yeah.
um, and then but being right there with Stanford and right there, I mean, we were 2 points away from beating Pitt. Like we were really right there, and that team has very, very rarely been challenged all year to that extent. And they had their start. It wasn't like they were resting people. They played the starters. They were playing to win
Yep.
the ACC in that game. They what? They got the
Yep.
auto bid, so like they needed that game. It wasn't like they weren't going to get in the tournament or whatever, anything like that. But winning the
Aren't
conference
they
back,
hosting
yes, they have
hosting
already.
through the first 4 rounds until they go to Louisville? Yeah.
That in fact they are, as they've already been slated as the number one seed in the tournament. So yeah,
SMU's the number 2 in their region too, so that sets up for a very interesting
that's going to be fantastic.
Elite
I
Eight
agree.
if so. But
Here's what I do like. I'm looking at Evolve right now. We are the best 9 loss team in this bracket in their rankings right now, which I know is not saying much. But the teams that we did lose to, though, we lost to Pitt twice. We lost to Stanford twice, 2 ranked losses. Lost to Florida State, ranked loss. Lost to Louisville, ranked loss. Lost to SMU, very high ranked loss in hindsight now. They were underestimated at that point in the season. Uh, and then lost to UCLA to open the year.
yep.
Every loss was a quality loss. There was no such thing as a outright disappointing. I mean, but okay, we lost to Miami. That one, that's the only one.
Miami's a pretty good team.
Miami's good. They were receiving votes, and we, for whatever reason, cannot get our act together in Coral Gables late in the season. So
Never can.
never don't know why. So there is, and knowing the context of how this is, like none of these losses, I would say, were like you had to have those back. Like none of these are inexcusable when looking at it. The part is if we wanted to make this leap and get past this spot we've been stuck in, you had to win half of these probably. You can't go into this winning with 9 losses.
Jack, it's exactly the life of that 10 to 30
exactly
ish ranked team. Because sometimes if you're one of those teams, like there are games when Miami or Florida State plays like the best of them, like a top 10 or top 10 adjacent team. But then there are also duds. I
Yeah.
don't think Tech has maybe as many duds there, and that's probably why they continue to be ranked. But like,
Yeah.
nothing is easy. Everything is hard. It sounds so reductive to say,
I
but
know. Yeah.
I mean that's where they're at. You gotta hope. Did we cover that Bianca Bertolino
Oh, she got
got
drafted. That's
drafted
right.
by the
Yeah.
Atlanta Five, so
She
she's
did.
staying
Yeah.
local. But like they'll need help at outside hitter come
Mhm.
next year. They'll need to reload a little bit, but barring some transfer portal type movement, like they got a lot to like about what's coming back too. So
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Logan Wiley's been fantastic. Sophia Velez has been getting a lot of digs in these games, has gotten better throughout the season, as she is the main target for a lot of things. Setter wise, we're gonna have to replace Emiliano when the season's over. So you say that our setter, both of our outside hitters, and a middle blocker are all gone after this year. So that's
hooray.
That's 4 start. We have to replace most of the starting lineup next year. We'll see how that goes. That is not a discussion for now.
Yeah.
All that to said, I just thinking tournament wise, we still haven't seen where they're going to go. But in general, they should win their first round game.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on where what I do like about the fact of where we're ranked now is that we're not going to play one of the absolute probably best 3 teams in the country. Which yes, we may have just taken Pitt to 5 in their building, but I would much rather play like Kentucky. I would much rather play like a Kansas or a Purdue versus anyone else right now and be kind of close in that middle of the pack if we can make it happen. So we'll see. We don't know, but we're at least not slotted in that number 17 slot where we got to go play the number 1 team in the country in the second match or one of the best teams in the country in the Sweet 16 if we got there. So at least we're out of that.
Yeah, it's a team that can win on any given day.
I hope they
End
do.
of story.
I mean, I mentioned I hate that our last home game finished the way it did. Like that is, our girls do not deserve that kind of loss going out with how incredibly amazingly they have played as the most consistent team sport team on Tech's campus the last long time. The last long time at this point. So, all right, we'll leave it there. We'll put up where volleyball lands in the tournament on the website. You kind of trivia'd me earlier. Do you have? Is there any? Do you have a Chicago trivia note I should know?
I can. I could probably make one up. Not make one up. Make one up. But the the good stuff there is certainly good too. You mentioned Wrigley Field. You know that for the up until like 2 years ago, the Bears had played more games at Wrigley than they had at Soldier Field.
I knew they had played there a long time. I didn't know it
Mhm.
was that many games. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was up
I mean,
until like 71,
oh,
1971, I think.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But
Interesting.
yeah, the North Side team, whereas the current Arizona Cardinals played at Comiskey, and we're the South
Hmm.
Side team. So
Right. Gotcha. That makes it interesting. Okay. I never thought of
yeah,
it that way, but that checks out. That checks out.
the more you know.
Okay.
Anyways, I think that'll do. I've been rooming on that 1989 for my historical piece all day. And again, that maybe it's just because I keep thinking about opening the season with Colorado. Maybe it's me being a little bit wishful, but it takes luck and skill and something in the walls that's positive. I think we got the something in the walls that's positive. So that's something to build on. So. Anywho, that is where we'll leave it for tonight. As noted, Perceive women's basketball. Get your eyes on the Mississippi State game coming up this week. That
Go
is
to women's basketball. Go to the games.
yes, that too. That is certainly something that's on our radar. Like Jack said, we will make sure posts are up when we know where Tech volleyball is headed. Maybe I can stall this slightly longer because more of the
We're waiting
brackets
so long.
coming
We're waiting so long.
coming out. But yeah, no, as always, and one thing we do want to plug as we're building up the audience, Blue Sky, check us out over there. From the Rumble seat is also over there as well. So check us out. We're there. In the meantime, you can find us on Twitter at FTRS blog. Jack, I don't know if you're still active over there, but
I am. Yep.
I'm kind of dormant. Jack is at Jack Nicholas over on that site. In the meantime, you can also find us at fromtherumbleseat.com, of course, for all of our articles. You can email us from therumbleseat@gmail.com with your thoughts and things there. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube from the Rumble Seat. And yeah, I think that rounds it out. Please rate, review, tell your friends. We really do appreciate it. And of course, provide your great feedback. It is always appreciated. Until next time, good night, good luck, and go Jackets.
With Jake, we did end up just not leaving our desks and watching where Georgia Tech volleyball ended up in the bracket. We knew they weren't going to host, and they're not. It turns out they're not even going to be in the Southeast. They're going back to Madison, Wisconsin, to play not Wisconsin yet. They're playing Tennessee. We are the number 7 seed in the bottom right corner of this
Hmm.
bracket. We knew we weren't going to go in it. We knew we were going to have to travel. We avoided Nebraska. Big thing here. We avoided Nebraska.
Until the inevitable Elite Eight matchup, Jack. Come on,
That's
positivity,
right. That's right.
positivity.
That's right. That's right. We'll beat them then. But we're playing Tennessee to start the tournament. We have not played Tennessee in I don't know how long. Not a usual opponent for us or anything like that. But this will be an ACC SEC game. Tennessee 26th in Evolve. They finished 15-11 this year. Um, I'm not surprised, I guess, is where I'm at right now. It's like I knew it was going to be kind of a tough road, but a winnable first game. This is probably a little bit closer, tight of a first game we would have wanted. We're not getting like a Florida Gulf Coast or somebody like that, but we're getting like a legit team too.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it's always scary to play. Um, the at larges. I think in the volleyball tournament, those are all really quality caliber teams. It's not the usual. Here's the winner of a random conference that you hear about twice a year type of thing. But in terms of the draw, I am pleased being on the far side of the bracket, the 2 seed side of the bracket, if you will. Um, I think that pencils out decently. But the field house is a really tough to play place to play, and I'm sure if they're not playing there and they're in the Kohl Center, then that just means you're in front of 20,000 screaming Wisconsin fans for the round 2 matchup. So either way, it's a pretty daunting slate. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. So
This is that. I mean, we knew it wasn't going to be easy. Like we played ourselves out of a favorable slot for the
yep.
most part at this end of the year, as we mentioned, before we logged off and then stayed on. Uh, so yeah, so we face Tennessee. Wisconsin has to get through Fairfield in their first round game, which odds are they will do that just fine. The in our quadrant on the bottom right, the other seeded teams are Texas A&M at 6, Arizona State at 3, Baylor at 4, Dayton at 5, Miami at 8, and Nebraska at 1. So any potential rematch this season would not show up until very far down the bracket if somehow we played Miami.
Yeah, and that's going to be a like if things play out as chalk, if you will, Arizona State and Nebraska would be the names to watch from those.
Yeah, agreed. This will be a very fun tournament. Games are getting played in bigger buildings than they were in the past, which is cool. We were talking about how Louisville is playing in the Yum Center instead of Freedom Hall to start, which is really cool.
And
That's
I think they used to open first two rounds in LNN too, if I have that right. But
right. Yeah. So
certainly, Yum Center is bigger than both of those buildings, regardless of it. And they're playing up to 6 in a row there because they also host the Final Four. So
yeah, it's getting bigger. It's gonna be cool. ACC wise, 9 teams have made the tournament. We got Pittsburgh. 10, 8, 10.
9,
We get to 10,
9.
9. Okay, no, I said 9. That's right. Okay, we got
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. We have SMU, both 1 and 2 seeds. Welcome to the conference, SMU. They're about to steal everything from us. Stanford at 2, NC State unranked. They're going to play Florida. Who else is here? Louisville, obviously 1 seed. They're going to probably get to the Final Four without even trying. And then Miami, as we mentioned. Us, as we mentioned.
5.
And then we've got Florida State is a 7 seed. They're going to play Ole Miss in Creighton, or in Omaha. And then we've got North Carolina sneaking in as an 8 seed. They're going to go to Penn State, though, so they'll have a tough time getting out of there. So, as we thought would happen, a tougher conference made it harder for Georgia Tech, and it's kind of panning out exactly how we thought this was going to pan out. When it's all said and done. So, but this will be fun. We got a shot to get our 21st win this week. They haven't said what time or when the game is, but we will have that out on the socials and stuff like that pretty soon. So
I think it's 5:30 on Thursday the 5th. Check.
5:30 on Thursday the 5th. Okay, that's cool
Yeah.
because I'm done with work at 5:30 on Thursday, so I could actually watch this game. So fantastic. That's all we got. We'll see y'all next week.